Welcome in live to another episode of The Fantasy Dilemma. I'm Courtney Fallon. As always, we have our guest, Nate Hamilton, but Nate is a little under the weather, so we're sending him our love and, Santa's well wishes so he gets better before Christmas. But instead, we have our guy, Joe, fantasy football analyst, and that's just what we're going to call you tonight.
Yep.
He has an Instagram page. It's been going 4 years strong. He's in like 10 leagues, 3 of them in the championship. He is our expert this week. And boy, do we have loads of questions to toss to you. Everyone's asking you about who they play in their lineup. And I mean, when people come out of the woodworks, they come out of the woodworks. This is the most important week in a fantasy football season. So are you ready, Joe? Give everyone the best advice you know.
I'm very ready. I spend the whole year preparing for this moment. So more than ready to answer as many questions as possible.
Okay. All right. You know what? So since we're running a little bit late, we're just going to get right to it. We got 3 fantasy ads, 3 fantasy drops, and then we're going to go through the plethora of questions people have been tossing to me. People have been tossing to our GameDay account. So let's kick that off and get started. Your fantasy ads at wide receiver. The Kansas City Chiefs are going headstrong into the postseason for a long run, hopefully for their sake, the reigning Super Bowl champs. And on that roster, it's the rich get richer. And there's one guy on the wide receiving core that you've got your eye on. His name is not Tyreek Hill. It's not Sammy Watkins. Joe, who is it?
Is that Nicole Hardman we're talking about?
Yeah,
so
Nicole Hardman.
I believe he had a long touchdown last week. And second-year player, he's on and off throughout the year. He did some kick returns early on. But the dude said they do feel he is and can be a big contributor to their offense. He's got it was like 4.4, 4.3 speed. I think he had the record as a rookie. Not the record, but he beat all the other rookies when he was coming out. So definitely high upside whenever you got Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball. Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, some of the best fantasy assets this year. And, at the same time, anybody who can get there, anyone close to Patrick Mahomes is someone you want on your roster. So definitely a big boomer bust play. And if he booms, it could mean a fantasy championship for you.
Well, it also means going into the postseason or going into those late season runs. Some of these guys like Tyreek Hill and defenses are gonna lock down some of their top receivers. They're gonna push them at the line and they're gonna double team them down the field. So always a viable option when you have more options at wide receiver. Nicole Hardman has impressed, especially on special teams, at least for me. That's caught my eye throughout the year. But he is just as fast and just as speedy. I mean, man, he fits into that wide receiving core as perfectly as the other ones. Moving on to running back, Ezekiel Elliott. I thought that we went throughout the entire season without having another major injury in Dallas. I know that they've kind of been struggling towards the end of the season. They did have a huge win, which just wound up busting the doors open. I feel like that score was like 41-29 over the 49ers on Sunday. It really was just garbage time points, but there is a running back, Ezekiel Elliott, still really hamstrung by that ankle injury is really holding him back. And this, Tony Pollard is going to get all the carries. What are your thoughts about playing him?
So Tony Pollard actually had 90% offensive snap share last week, or just percent of the offensive plays, which is huge because even Zeke wasn't getting that much when he was healthy and on the field. And Zeke wasn't producing as well as Pollard was. I mean, he put up over 20 points last week against San Francisco 49ers, considered one of the better defenses at stopping running backs this year. So Pollard was really, really impressive. And for a lot of people, he might be hiding in some waiver wires because in most leagues, right now, Ezekiel Elliott has a projection for this week. So they're projecting him to play. But if he doesn't end up playing, then Pollard's going to be a killer play against the Eagles. And because Ezekiel Elliott is projected, Pollard's not projected as much. He's going to be hiding deep into the waiver wire of the depths of, because it's assumed that he's not going to be the starter right now. So if Zeke is out, Pollard can be a league-winning play, and I'm all aboard picking him up if he is available in your league.
At tight end, We have Jordan Akins of the Houston Texans. Don't count out the Houston Texans just yet. Deshaun Watson, I know that he has really struggled with that offensive line, is not keeping his jersey clean for the last couple of weeks. So seeing him scramble out the pocket, just get doused. A lot of people thought that the Texans had Bahamas syndrome, that they were just kind of checked out looking towards the postseason, but it seems as though he has been targeting a new favorite tight end. His name is Jordan Akins, back-to-back weeks with 6 targets. Why do you like him this week?
So Akins is pretty interesting. And even, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, Akins had a couple chances to come down with some big touchdown catches. Unfortunately, he did make some drops. But the fact that they're going back to him and they went back to him last week shows that they are starting to gain more and more confidence with him. Since Will Fuller got suspended, kind of have to look towards new alleys. We see Kiki Kuti getting some of the touches. Brandon Cooks, he's seeing more coverage now. And even David Johnson, he was heavily used in the passing game last week. But Jordan Akins has a great matchup against the Bengals. They've been one of the worst defenses at covering tight ends. And anytime you have Deshaun Watson in a matchup like that against Cincinnati, and I know they played well against the Steelers. Don't let that fool you. They're still the Bengals. So, I mean, if Deshaun Watson's going to have a big game, I think Jordan Akins is a perfect upside play. And considering, like you said, he is getting those 6 targets over the last 2 weeks, I like Jordan Akins.
Okay, now to your drops. First up, we have a wide receiver, Mike Williams of the Los Angeles Chargers. He had a total of 91 receiving yards in his last 4 games. Whether or not Justin Herbert is struggling with that offense or what's happening with Anthony Lynn, I know that they have about, the 4th overall seed, 4th overall position to, in the 2021 NFL draft right now. So whether or not their eyes are just on finishing the season or, that offense is stopped. Why is he your number one on dropped this week?
So Mike Williams, we haven't seen much consistency out of a lot of these guys in Los Angeles. Last week, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams both banged up. Mike Williams is a guy who, it seems like over the course of his career, he's just been consistently banged up. Since they've gotten Eckler back into the lineup, he's just another guy to take away targets from Williams. Williams, because of his size and because of his big catch and contested catch ability, he is a continuous high upside play. But at the same time, the risk in playing him in your championship matchup, and the benefit does not outweigh the risk here. It's just an easy drop for me. You can focus your picks elsewhere.
Running back, you have Daryl Henderson Jr. It seems like Austin Eckler is getting a majority of the run carries there after a multi-week injury. He is the guy. So at the Los Angeles Rams, he had 3 total rushing yards the last 2 games. That must be an easy drop.
Yeah, it changes a little bit because Cam Akers, their starting rookie running back, he's dealing with a high ankle sprain. Right, yeah. So he's expected to be out the next couple of weeks.
The other guy in LA for some reason.
Malcolm Brown. There's 3 guys in there that are getting the touches. And that's the problem.
Austin Eckler, all those guys. Yeah. That's the way I say.
No, that's okay. But I mean, it's a 3-headed backfield there. And what really worries me is even right before Cam Akers came back, Malcolm Brown was the guy getting the head of the touches. And even last week, Malcolm Brown still outsnapped Daryl Henderson. So I feel like Daryl Henderson is going to be pretty fool's gold for a lot of people. A lot of people might expect him to be the next guy up and to have that big game, but it could very well go the other way. It could be Malcolm Brown. It could be no one. We've seen just situations where Jared Goff is forced to throw the ball. So I'm not a huge fan of Daryl Henderson. Okay.
Typically, I think in the times that the Rams offense has clicked, it's they use the run to set up the pass. But, the times the last couple of weeks, they have struggled, especially against
the Jets.
New York Jets. That was one of the more embarrassing. What was the more embarrassing loss, would you say? Losing to the Jets or losing to the Bengals and being the Steelers? You know that they were the first team in the modern NFL era to go undefeated 11-0 and then lose their next 3 straight games. That's unbelievable to me.
I forget who made the post. It might have been one of those NFL meme pages, but the list of the teams that the Steelers beat up to that point was just not very impressive. It was just a lot of mediocre teams who were either banged up, like one of them was like without Lamar, and like the Ravens with Lamar and some other examples, but they had a very easy schedule early on, so it's not surprising, especially now after all the losses they've had on their defense of how much they're struggling lately. But definitely more embarrassing to lose to the winless Jets with Adam Gase and Frank Gore leading the charge at running back. Anytime it's a divisional matchup with like the Bengals and Steelers, and there's always a chance there's upsets. We see it year after year with the Jets. Sometimes now it's a toss up between the Jets and the Patriots, unfortunately. Like historically, even when the Jets were at their worst, sometimes they'd get the Patriots at the best. They beat the Patriots at home or something like that. So within the division, it's always possible. But yeah, definitely more embarrassing to lose to Sam Darnold and Adam Gase.
Your final drop on the roster before we get into all the questions is Jonnu Smith. Man, I had so many lofty expectations for Jonnu Smith. A lot of people did. He is such a force to be reckoned with, but he has been unable to stay healthy this year, and he's still dealing with a knee injury. It was like he was big at the beginning of the season, and then he kind of dropped off, and he had one little couple weeks in the middle of the season where he had a spurt. I picked him up, and then I immediately dropped him after I realized that he was doing nothing. He hasn't scored a touchdown exactly since week 11, so that was probably around the time where I got sucked into picking him up on my roster. He has got a tough week 16 matchup against Green Bay, and they're allowing the 5th fewest fantasy points to tight ends. Is this a no-brainer for you? He's rostered in a lot of leagues.
Yeah, he is. And, his early success has to do a lot because of the injury to A.J. Brown. So within the roster, we saw, you talked about how he had that middle stretch as well, where he had a couple games in the middle where he showed up. That was because Corey Davis was on a COVID list. So you have moments where A.J. Brown is gone, someone else needs these targets. Corey Davis is out, and he's become an integral part of this offense, so someone else needs to see those targets. And now you're at the point where, like, look, A.J. Brown's healthy. They're running it like crazy with Derrick Henry in these easy running back matchups. And then A.J. Brown's the big play guy. They don't really have a need for Jonnu. And at the same time, Anthony Firkser, he's getting a lot more involved as a tight end that honestly, everybody expected. I mean, there's some games where he has equal or more targets than Jonnu. So, like you said, Green Bay, not a great matchup, just not someone I want to trust. There might be guys on the waiver wire who might be worth a look at as well.
Speaking of the waiver wire, let's get right into the questions. I said that we had a mixed bag. We had a ton of questions.
Awesome.
Thank you to everyone on my Instagram page and everyone on the Game Days page for submitting. Everyone seems to be excited about having some fantasy analysts break down their rosters. Let's start it up. Waiver wire pickup: Bell, Ahmed, or Pollard, who we talked about.
Okay, so we talked about Pollard before a little bit.
Yeah. I think Salvon Ahmed, Matt Breida had about 75 yards. I mean, I know that Salvon Ahmed had, a couple of goal line carries and a touchdown. He seemed inspired. He had 117 yards, but it seemed like it was kind of a flash in the pan kind of thing because they got a bunch of running backs down there in Miami. I wouldn't really trust either one of them.
They do. And the interesting thing about Miami is they kind of have a pecking order when it comes to workhorses. So when Gaskin is healthy, and he's presumed to come back this week after spending some time in the COVID list, coming off injury, all that. So with Gaskin back, he will be the lead back in this backfield. Ahmed seems to be the next type of workhorse. So when he is healthy and on the roster, he does get the bulk of the carries. He does get a bulk of the snaps, and he is the main guy when it comes to that. But like I said, Myles Gaskin, he's expected to be back this week, and I think Ahmed is going to go back to taking a back seat. There's definitely upside there, and he's definitely worth keeping an eye on if Myles Gaskin is going to be out this week. Bell is someone I'm pretty interested in. Clyde Edwards, we know he's going to be out this week. He's dealing with a high ankle and I believe also a hip injury.
Yeah, that didn't look good.
Yeah, it did not look good at all. So Bell's expected to get a bulk of the carries and most of the work. So, and I mean, Pollard, okay, if Zeke does not play, Pollard is 100% my guy. As of right now, because of how close Zeke was to playing, if you have to make this decision tonight, I'm going to go Bell. And I'd call him a PPR running back 2 type flex play. Okay. But ideally, if you have a Clyde Edwards-Helaire that you can drop because he's not going to play this week, if you have extra defenses or guys you aren't going to play and can't help the other team, just pick up as many guys as you can. So That's what I would say about that.
You heard it here first. Tight end question here: George Kittle or TJ Hawkinson? I feel like Hawkinson has just been Matt Stafford's go-to guy. It's like Marvin Hall and TJ Hawkinson. Very impressive for that second-year kid out of Iowa. The Lions, they still put up points, regardless of what their record is. I kind of like, I don't know. I mean, I think Hawkinson he's 100% healthy, right? So it's 100% healthy or the go-to guy. And by the way, Nick Mullins is not starting for the 49ers. So they're going to be playing CJ Beathard, I believe. So toss up at quarterback. To me, I would take Hawkinson.
See, for me, Hawkinson's coming off a week. I believe he had like one catch. He had about like 1 or 2 points last week. Wasn't a great week for him. But consistently, Hawkinson has been doing great this year. Mm-hmm. And I understand this type of question. But I feel like for me, like if Kittle's playing and if he's healthy enough to play, if he's going to be on the field, if he's going to take the bulk of the snaps, if they come out and say, okay, you know what, we're going to ease him back into it. We don't want to put too much work on him. If he's active, I'm going to play him because I don't care if it's CJ Beathard. I don't care if it's Josh Rosen, who they just signed from Tampa Bay's practice squad. Yeah. He's the focal point of their offense, and he's the guy. He is a league winner type guy. He's the big play guy, and when he is healthy, they run their offense through them. I don't know if there's a question coming about CMC anywhere, but Christian McCaffrey, he's played 3 games. In those 3 games, he's averaged 30 fantasy points. Wow. So these, when these big name guys are back into the game, they're excited. They want to use them right away, and I feel like George Kittle's that type of play. So if George Kittle is healthy, I am going to start George Kittle.
Okay. The next question, Cooper Kupp or a healthy Devonte Parker?
Cooper Kupp, look, the matchup against Seattle is very, very intriguing. I'm not sure. I don't have it with me. Do you have any idea who the Dolphins play this week? Or maybe I can talk about it.
I will just look it up while you keep
talking. But I'll go in a little bit on Cooper Kupp. I mean, he's just not someone who's been getting consistent targets. Robert Woods is
the Raiders? I think they're 2.5. They're 2.5 point favorites over the
Raiders. Okay. Yeah. I mean, look, Cooper Kupp has not been consistent. Robert Woods is clearly the alpha in Los Angeles right now. And other than that, they're going to rely on their running game. Jared Goff, they don't really want to make him throw the ball all that much anymore, just because he hasn't been doing well. We saw what he did against the Jets. He just did not look great. So when it comes to a healthy Devonte Parker against the Raiders, which is a great matchup, potentially no Mike Gesicki, no Jakeem Grant. The running backs are all banged up. I think Tua's not going to have much of a choice.
Over the Patriots. We all know that.
Yeah. Enough to beat Cam and my Patriots, unfortunately. But so I would go Parker. I'd lean a little bit towards Parker there.
Okay. Big Ben or Jalen Hurts?
Jalen Hurts, easy.
Yeah, that's just a good. I brought that up for DFS last week.
Yeah.
We had our little team production meeting and I was like, I think I need Jalen Hurts. And man, he impressed a lot of people. His second ever start, it was on the road. That was a super exciting game down the stretch there against the Cardinals. I mean, it was back and forth. It was electric. I think they've got something really good in the works there in Philly. Speaking of the other guy on the other side of the ball, Kyler Murray or Aaron Rodgers. These are my 2 fantasy quarterbacks. Wow. Whoever wrote that must be super smart because those are my 2 fantasy quarterbacks. My team sucks.
Hey, you're in the championship, are you?
No, I'm in the
I'm sorry.
I don't care. No.
Oh, well, I just also wanted to bring up, I had mentioned earlier that I'm in 3 championships heading into this week. And a big part of that is my starting quarterback in all 3 of those is Jalen Hurts. So he has propelled me into the championships.
Wow.
I'm a huge proponent of him.
Okay.
Which is very interesting. But on the terms of Kyler or Rodgers, it's very close to me. But Kyler going up against San Francisco and Aaron Rodgers having a great primetime matchup against the Tennessee Titans. That secondary is nothing to be scared of in Tennessee. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to light them up and give fantasy owners just a memorable championship game. So I do love Kyler. I do love Rodgers. I would hate to have them both and have to choose week to week, but I think either of them are fine.
It's easy when Kyler has been hurt, though. It's like it wasn't 100%. It was like, all right, Aaron. It's so funny because when I would start one, it's like the other would make me regret.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh, geez, Kyler Murray got me 29 points, and then boom, Aaron Rodgers gets me 34.
Yeah.
It was like that. It was fool's gold, at least for me. Start Josh Allen or pick up Ryan Tannehill?
Josh Allen. Josh Allen's going against the Patriots this week. Stephon Gilmore, he's going to be out for the rest of the year, and that's a huge one. So although Tannehill has been killing it, and he is coming off a great game, it's clearly got to be Josh Allen.
Okay, I'm going on my responses on my Instagram. Should I start Aaron Jones or Nick Chubb?
Ooh. Aaron Jones got a huge workload last week. He's got a nice primetime game. But Nick Chubb against the Jets. I mean, look, and I'm not fooled by the Jets last week. I know the Jets they came up and they did great against the Rams. They ended up pulling off the win. But I'm not buying that at all. So I think Nick Chubb's going to run rampant on them with a great game script. I also just want to mention, I believe it was Josh Allen or Hurts. I think he just corrected it down there.
Or pick up Jalen Hurts. But you already said that.
Yeah, I'd still have Josh Allen over Hurts.
Yeah. All right. Who do I start in my flex? Michael Pittman Jr., Chase Edmonds. He's in my doghouse. Mooney or Jeff Wilson Jr.?
Mooney or Jeff Wilson.
Well, those four. Michael Pittman Jr., Edmonds, Mooney, or Jeff Wilson Jr.
So it's not going to be Pittman for me. He was one of the guys who I thought could be a league winner, but then T.Y. Hilton had this odd career resurgence.
He went over 75 yards like in an instant. It was like hit the over in the second quarter.
Yeah.
Everyone who had that prop bet.
Yeah. Came out of nowhere. Mooney, I'm not a fan of. It's too hit or miss with Trubisky. You got Allen Robinson, who's being hyper targeted. David Montgomery doing really well on the ground. My pick's going to be Jeff Wilson. Okay. And Raheem Mostert, he's expected to miss the rest of the year. He's been sharing the starting role with Raheem Mostert. The only one they really have behind him is Tevin Coleman and Jerick McKinnon, who has tired legs. So he's not really seeing much of the field. Jeff Wilson's going to be my pick pretty easily there.
For my flex, should I start J.K. Dobbins or Marvin Jones Jr.?
Well, that's a good one. So I believe J.K. Dobbins has the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
And Marvin Jones, I'm not quite sure.
They're playing the Bucs on Christmas.
The Bucs. Ooh, yeah. So I'm going to roll J.K. Dobbins there. Mark Ingram, a healthy scratch last week. Him and Gus Edwards sharing bulk of the carries. But Dobbins has been getting it done on the ground. He's been getting touchdowns on a week-to-week basis. I believe it's like 4 or 5 weeks in a row where Dobbins has scored. And he's looked really, really good. I mean, I usually go over like my favorite rookies every year and just the prospects, not necessarily like where they land and how they think they'll do. But just as a player, J.K. Dobbins was my favorite running back coming out of this class. So glad to see him start getting more of the work, and I'm definitely going to start him over Marvin this week.
Okay. Speaking of more running backs, CMC, if he's active, Henry, Eckler, or Aaron Jones. He's in a 16-game PPR.
Wow. You can only start one? Is that what he said?
Yeah. So I'm guessing this is just choose one. CMC, Henry, Eckler, or Aaron Jones.
So I'm going to kick Eckler, and I'm going to kick Aaron Jones to the curb.
Okay.
It's going to be between Henry and Eckler. If it's a standard league, I'm not Eckler, I'm sorry, Henry or CMC. If it's a standard league, then I'm okay with rolling Henry over CMC. But if it's a PPR league, I'm easily running CMC here. As I mentioned, he's played 3 games, and in those 3 games, he's averaged 30 fantasy points. So they've proved when he comes back, they're going to ride him. And I think the Panthers offense has struggled a lot this year. And when he comes back, they're just going to insert him back into that same role. So he's CMC for me for the most part. Unless you're playing standard, then I'll go Henry.
Okay. Should you start? What are your thoughts on Geo Bernard and my good little friend Eva? She said that against this week or Clyde Edwards, but we already know that he's hurt. So what are your thoughts on Geo Bernard?
So Geo Bernard, he kind of disappeared 2 weeks ago, and he reappeared against what was believed to be one of the best run defenses in the NFL with the Steelers. Yeah. And Geo Bernard took a bulk of the carries. He looked great on the ground. I watched, for the most part, most of that game. I wasn't really too interested from the outside perspective. But, yeah, I mean, Geo Bernard, I'd call him a decent flex / running back too. He's got Houston, which has been one of the worst defenses against running backs this year. And assuming he's going to get the bulk of the carries like he did last week, then I'm comfortable and I'm fine starting him. But, yeah, I mean, I was a little worried from what I saw in that first playoff matchup, week 14, but he did make up for it, and he's got a great matchup.
Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, or Jalen Hurts? Again, I think we can ride Jalen Hurts to the champ.
Yeah, still Josh Allen. I mentioned Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts before, but Jalen Hurts is right there. I mean, he's he is right there next to him.
Yeah. Yeah. Kyler or Rogers, we already answered that. TJ Hawkinson or Logan Thomas?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Logan Thomas, he's the tight end out of Washington, right?
Yep. So Logan Thomas, he's one of the guys I actually brought up right before the season started. He apparently was the number 1 tight end prospect coming out of college back in 2014, 2013. And interestingly enough, he was tight end prospect coming out of high school. I'm sorry. And then in college, they transitioned him to quarterback. He retrained. He was drafted as a quarterback and then released. And eventually, he made his way back into being a tight end and worked his way up to where he is now. But he's very, very talented tight end. He's been getting a ton of targets lately, and I don't think that's going to stop. I mean, I don't want to sit TJ Hawkinson, but he's got a tough matchup against Tampa Bay, and Logan Thomas has just proved that he's an integral part of this offense now. So I'm going to roll with Logan Thomas here.
Yeah, I'm really in love with that Washington football team offense. When Dwayne Haskins is at a club and with as I said, a booty full of COVID.
Gosh,
I love that. Actually, the same thing happened to James Harden, and they use that quote. Anyone at the strip club right now, it's a booty full of COVID.
Booty full of COVID. Okay.
But we're hoping that Alex Smith gets to start, hoping that calf strain that he endured a couple of weeks ago is not serious, because the Washington football team and that offense can be pretty explosive. And it's more so even just to show that Terry McLaurin, who has been their breakout star, has kind of been quiet over the last couple of weeks. I mean, they seemingly have a lot of weapons on offense, and that kid has really showed up, especially in the red zone near the goal line. Start Kittle if he is playing. I think we went over that. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Start Roethlisberger or pick up Hurts. I think that we already answered that. Okay. Jalen Hurts killed my auto fantasy draft run at Fantasy Football Glory. So apparently he did an auto draft, and Jalen Hurts ruined all of that.
Aw, maybe he auto drafted Wentz. Maybe that's why.
Yeah. I have Ezekiel Elliott. What do I do?
Panic. I mean, the fact that he was inactive last week was probably a blessing in disguise, because for a lot of people who have Ezekiel Elliott, you probably don't have much of a choice but to play him. I mean, considering how thin running back gets, you probably don't have too many other.
Really high too, so that's why they feel like they have an obligation to do it the same way that I did with Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yeah. Exactly. And you drafted him third, fourth, fifth overall. You feel like you can't sit that kind of guy. But look, it's matchup against the Eagles. Their run defense hasn't been nearly as good as it has been historically, or at least the last couple of years. But still, I don't trust him. And I think with what Tony Pollard did last week, I think we're going to see the gap between Zeke and Pollard get smaller and smaller, especially because Zeke isn't completely healthy. Yeah. So I don't feel comfortable starting Zeke. But again, it depends who else you have, because if your next best guy is Ito Smith from the Falcons, who's now the starter, then obviously I'm still going to roll with Zeke and just hope for the best. But generally, I don't feel comfortable starting him.
Okay. In the championship, this is a multi-part question. So
awesome. I'm ready for it.
2 running backs and 1 flex. Pick 3.
Okay.
Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, Ronald Jones, Cooper Kupp. 0.5 PPR.
Everybody except Cooper Kupp.
Everyone except for Cooper Kupp.
So he needs 2 running backs and a flex.
Yeah, 2 running backs and a flex. All right. J.K. Dobbins, Kenyon Drake, T.Y. Hilton, or Kiki Kuti in the flex. Our guy Nate Hamilton, big on Kiki. we started printing the shirts, man.
That's a really tough one. I can kind of kick out T.Y. Hilton pretty easily there. Just he strung together some great games, and he kind of fell off a little bit last week, mostly in part because he had Houston in 2 out of the 3 weeks, and historically he just crushes Houston. So it's J.K. Dobbins. Kenyon Drake, I don't really feel all that comfortable with against San Francisco. So J.K. Dobbins or Kiki QT. My heart says Dobbins, but that might be my bias, my love for Dobbins. Just Kiki QT has also been very, very consistent, very, very good. So it's really, really tough between those two. I'll say Dobbins, but I won't blame you for going either way.
All right. So I'm writing and speaking on behalf of my guy Sean Brown.
Okay.
He sent me his lineup. So he's got Russell Wilson, Derrick Henry, Leonard Fournette,
Awesome.
Chris Godwin, Curtis Samuel, and this is the one that I was questioning: Jared Cook at tight ends. He's playing McKissick in the flex, Carlson, the kicker from the Raiders, and sure. I told him to play the Chiefs defense. He also has the Steelers defense, which we obviously know that's not good. Mm-hmm. But here's what he's got on his bench. He's got Tyler Boyd, who is, I think he went out with a concussion earlier in that game last night. Rashad Perryman from the Jets. That was a big question for him. Chase Edmonds, Samuel, and that's about it. But I was worried. So he's got Logan Thomas too. I feel like Jared Cook to me is a big question. Would you start him or Thomas?
100% Thomas. And I understand the intrigue with Jared Cook because you have Michael Thomas on IR. You have Drew Brees back, and Drew Brees last year had a really good connection with Jared Cook down the stretch. So I understand the want and the why Jared Cook might look like a great play, but you can't sit Logan Thomas for him right now. I mean, Logan Thomas has been killing it lately.
Yeah. Okay. So are any of those guys that is sitting on his bench are intriguing? Samuel, wide receiver, Chase Edmonds, no. Perryman or Tyler Boyd?
With Rojo coming back this week, last time Rojo was active, Leonard Fournette was a healthy scratch. So with Rojo coming back, I guess you kind of got to play Edmonds over Fournette. Okay.
All right. That's awesome. I'll send. See, I mean, everyone, just send us your rosters. He is the fantasy football analyst. Why don't you plug your Instagram? So after we get off of this little live chat, they can just go hit you up in the section.
For sure, I do.
Following fantasyfootball.analyst.
Fantasy.football.analyst. Got it.
Okay. All right. Anything? Do you have anything else to add before the weekend?
Well, first of all, happy holidays to you. Happy holidays to everybody listening.
Yes.
Second of all, this is do or die. Don't go with your gut. Trust your gut. Stick to your studs, in exception of Zeke. But another critical thing with this waiver wire, especially tonight for a lot of people who's going to process, pick up guys who you don't need, like who your opponent might use. Because even though you don't need them.
Yeah, that's what Nate said a couple weeks ago.
I talked about this right before we went on too. Like if you have Clyde, he's not playing this week. You can drop him and pick up like defense the other team might use, or a running. If they need a running back, grab a running back they might use. So just make sure you're playing smart, and things like that can help you win your league and hopefully win some money too.
Okay. All right. Well, good luck, everyone. I'm Courtney Fallon. He is Joe, the fantasy football analyst. You can hit us up in the comments. You can share this live tweet for the live stream.
Multiple platforms.
Yeah, live stream. So one of those things you get a text and you're like, wait, what's going on? And so anyways, good luck this weekend, and hope everyone brings home the shit.
Absolutely. Good luck, guys.
Bye.